And I'm pleased to say Diana joins us now, the White House correspondent for the great dailycaller.com. Hello, mate. Welcome to Australian Telly.
Hi, Paul. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
So, Democrats think that they have got their tails up, despite the fact that when you lose the House, things are not going to be great for the next 2 years. Give me an idea about what Biden plans to do with a parliament he can't pass a law through and re-election, which looks rocky at best when his approval level is, just above 40%.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. Because the Republicans won the majority of the House, they got 220 seats, which is the majority. They were not able to secure the Senate, but because they have the House, they have one chamber of the legislative body. And so Biden has been kind of unclear what his plans are. He knows that he can't push legislation like he could in his first term. If we all remember, most of the votes came down to just a few votes in the Senate to get his legislation through, and now he won't be able to do that given the majority in the House. So one of his first things, one of his promises that he made in the midterms was if he got both chambers, he would codify Roe v. Wade, which is the federal right to abortion. And now almost immediately after the midterms, he said, we won't have the votes to do that anymore. So his one and only promise has been canceled out, basically. And now he's rallying support behind banning assault weapons. But also, he will have to get a very large margin of votes to push through his legislation.
But also, and apologies for interrupting, but also a big part of how the American system works is, Election Day, first week in November, new Congress doesn't start until January, so that gives you all of November and potentially all of December to get something done. Now, right now, he has a majority in both houses and therefore could pass a piece of legislation and sign it before things change. Now, things like debt ceilings and all of that might take place. Now, I know that obviously Democrats in some ways want to keep the abortion issue going because they see it as a driver of votes. But surely at some point, women will see, they've got this opportunity, they've got a month, they can squeeze it through if they want to. But if they're not squeezing it through, then how serious are they about it? What do you think is going to happen in this lame duck period of time? Because I feel things might get pretty radical between now and Christmas.
Yeah, and Biden just had a meeting with the top Democrat and Republican leaders on Monday, with the top leaders of the House and the Senate from both parties. And they discussed some things that they wanted to achieve in the lame duck session in a bipartisan way. All of them agreed that they should work together to stop the possible rail strike that's coming up. They talked about Ukraine funding. They talked about COVID and things like that. But nothing really big, nothing that the bipartisans are coming together and saying, we really have to work on this together. And you're totally right on abortion. They do have this period, but it will be hard to get the votes, and the holidays are coming up. So I think it's very, very unlikely that they're going to push through anything on abortion.
Now, given the chance that you get the chance to work in the White House, a few years ago I got the chance to be there, visit, meet President Trump, but obviously see the working digs that you're in, a lot smaller than anyone expects. But what's it like up close? Because it feels like when we watch them on TV, the network TV's pretty soft, occasionally a couple of questions rock in from Fox. But it feels like the White House spokesperson just either plays a straight bat or just lies, but because it's the lies the left like, nobody calls them out. How do you not just want to scream sometimes in those briefings?
Oh, yes, it's incredibly frustrating being in the White House briefing room. And like you mentioned, some of the lies that are just coming out of the spokesperson for the White House. For example, yesterday, there was a question about, will Biden have any plans to go to the southern border? Because, as we know, there's a crisis going on the southern border, and it's the largest number of migrants coming across the border in American history. So the question was, does Biden have any plans to go to the border soon? And Karine Jean-Pierre said Biden has been to the border and that going to the border has been a Republican stunt and things like this. But the last time Biden has been to the border was 2008. So, she says Biden has been to the border, and that's her whole excuse, but it was over a decade ago. So it's just completely ridiculous. And a lot of the questions that are being asked at the White House are softball questions that feed the White House narrative. And the tough questions that she does get asked she tries to get her way out of them, like we saw with the border question.
Again, just looking from afar, look, there's no mystery who these people vote for, right? They're all sort of centre-left or maybe hard-left, depending on particular news organisations. But what we saw during the years of Trump was that any and every anonymous source, any and every story was a daily battering ram of scandal, right? Sometimes legit, sometimes complete BS. But when there are legitimate scandals or even things that don't make sense, the very same people show no curiosity in this stuff whatsoever. And then they turn around and they wonder why people use terms like fake news. Now, I'm not talking about, the absolute nutters that would go and run towards the Capitol or write the weirdest things on Truth Social. I'm just talking about normal people. They go, hang on, wasn't it wrong when Trump did this, so why is it not wrong when Biden does it?
Exactly right. And what you said about people being all up in arms about Trump, that was the climate in the press room back in the day. People had burning questions that they needed to ask Trump, and they would do anything that they could to get those questions answered. But now, if anyone shows any opposition to the White House, if anyone tries to ask a burning question that the American people want to know, for example, about Biden's mental health, the majority of Americans share concerns about Biden's mental health and think that it might be concerning that he's the oldest president in U.S. history and he's possibly shown signs of being mentally unfit. But if you dare ask a question like that, you're going to be shot down and you're not going to get an answer. And reporters refuse to ask that question.
Now, one thing I love doing is talking to people like yourself because it gives hope to those of us who think that people of a certain age all think one particular way. Of course, they don't. I think it takes courage to do what you do. I think it takes courage to sort of put your head in the lion's mouth all the time. What do you take from it? Because it would have been really easy for you just to be nice, nod your head, go work at the Huffington Post, make your way through the newsroom of CNN, eventually pick up a few Peabodys along the way, go write some funny jokes with Trevor Noah. Why did you decide, no, this matters to me and I'm doubling down, working for something like the Daily Caller, which I love as a website, but we all know some don't?
I mean, that's a great question, but what matters most to me is pursuing the truth. And to me, I think what the stories that I write and the questions that I ask are the truth. And I think a lot of Americans do believe that. A lot of Americans support us, and they know that we try to report on the facts. And a lot of other publications use euphemism. They don't pursue certain stories. They censor things. For example, Hunter Biden's laptop was censored by mainstream media for over 2 years, and now it's finally coming to light that the laptop was legit, and all the documents on it were legit, but we were one of the first publications to come forward and verify the laptop. We were one of the first publications to talk about the possible COVID leak and things like that are now mainstream in mainstream media. So that just comes to show that our outlet pursues facts and it pursues truth.
Bloody oath. What a thrill to talk to you. Thank you very much. Let's do it again, because seriously, I love people who are at the top of their game, and it doesn't come better than working at the White House, even though some of the snooty types may look down upon you. We look up at you, mate.
Thank you so much, Paul.